Empower Network TV, pleased to bring you, as I turn my phone off, Parenting Micro Summit. This is going to be fun. We've done micro summits now or roundtables. This is probably our 20th. No, it's more than that. It's almost our 40th in the group in the last year. Today's micro summit features four wonderful people that are all going to be giving their thoughts and perspectives on parenting, and we'll see where this goes. So let's first introduce each of the four, and then I'll get them to kind of introduce themselves. So Kathleen Ellis, welcome here. Eric Stenlake, welcome here. Lorna Gale, welcome here. And Heidi Haas, welcome here. So if the four of you, we'll start with Kathleen. If you can just introduce yourself for 1 minute so people have an understanding of context of who you are, what you've kind of done in your life, why you would want to appear on a micro summit that's about parenting. How does that sound? Can we go with you, Kathleen, first?
Sure. So my background is a spiritual teacher and educator and also a healthcare provider in the world of physical therapy. I help to look at that spiritual side of life, whether it's with young people or old people. The reality, the soul part of us is ageless. So I think parenting is just an adjunct to everything else that we're dealing and learning with in life. And I'm excited to share my experiences with children, grandchildren, and young people.
Oh, awesome. Kathleen, excited you're here. Eric Stenlake, please, can you go next?
Hey, good morning, everyone. I'm Eric Stenlake. I am a teen parent family coach. I've been in the world of education since 1996. I am just really, really passionate about helping you and your family be the very, very best that you can be and set up systems, structures, orders of operation, help reconnect the family to a place and space of which everyone together collectively is reaching their goals, reaching their maximum potential as a family to achieve that ultimate goal, which is to be the very, very best family that you can be.
Eric, sounds like you've done this once or twice too. Welcome here, Eric. Lorna Gale, please. Who are you, my dear, and where are you from, and what are you up to in the world?
All right, thank you. It's wonderful to be here. And I am hearkening right now from beautiful British Columbia in Western BC or Western Canada in BC. So bit of a background. I have been parented, so there's always that perspective as of parenting. And I am a wife. I'm a mom and a grandmother and my work as a somatic sex educator and alchemist of the feminine-led life through sex and spirit. It's really about, for me, it's really about bringing peace and harmony into our homes through peace and harmony in ourselves, through our sexuality and our spirituality.
Thank you, Lorna Gale. Welcome here. Heidi Haas, last but not least, please. What you up to?
Hi, I am also in Western Canada. I'm a little bit closer to the coast. I think, Lorna, you're more mid-province, but yep, out here on the wet coast. Um, I have three kids. My background originally was as an IT consultant, and I did a lot of project management. And I did end up in like working with the education system an awful lot from that perspective. But also, I think where my passion lies is just in advocating for neurodiverse kiddos who are struggling, who are not finding a place within the regular school system. And a lot of that just came from, as it usually does, my own experiences. So I have three kids. All three of them are very unique and different and didn't fit in the school systems necessarily. We had to do a lot of work to sort of figure out our way and what was going to work. And they're all young adults now and doing great. And um, yeah, just that idea that if we can break the patterns of our own, like Lorna, you said, our own parenting and sometimes those generational, I have a lot of, my parents were Germans, so there's a whole history of war and all sorts of things. If we can break those patterns and help our kids know themselves for who they are, we can value them for who they are. It really changes the dynamic for how they grow up, I think. So that's where I'm at.
Awesome. Thanks for being here, Heidi. Let's jump right into it. We'll go with the same order. Kathleen, can you just give us context then? So, parent, you've been parented, as Lorna pointed out, we've all been parented. That's part of the qualifier here. And then also as a parent, as a grandma, can you just kind of talk topically about what your experience in parenting has been before we go deeper into it? just give the audience a bit of a context of how you come to the table today.
Well, one of the things is having that awareness of the uniqueness of the person, that baby, child, teenager, young person. I was the third in my family, and there was a lot of dynamics I didn't really understand. As an adult now, I look back at it from the standpoint of my parents did the best they knew how. And they were passing on what they had learned from their parents. But luckily, I was able to find sort of a different way that looks at each individual's needs, uniqueness, had an awareness of my own needs as a very young teenager, just had this sort of connection with sort of a bigger picture, and became a mother actually because I had that soul connection and realized that I had some contracts to be a mother for some souls. Otherwise, I wasn't really in that going to be a mother type of role. And now I have grandchildren. And although I moved away from where my parents were, and they never really had that much interaction with my children because of locations and funds, my children wanted to move away, but they married local people, and I luckily have my grandchildren in my life and quite a bit. So it's an opportunity for me to interact, because I consider them old souls. They've been around the block more than me, and I can learn so much more from them, and tuning into that uniqueness of them, and how can I be a nurturer and helping them to blossom, I think is the real key in being in that adult role.
Thank you, Kathleen. Eric, a bit of context as to, before we jump into the deep end.
Well, Amos and friends here watching, listen, I have been the most amazing parent you have ever seen in your life, and I've been an absolute dumpster fire. It just depends upon what's going on in the aging process with my kids. And sometimes things are going really, really well, and there's other times they aren't. And those are the instances of which we really want to take a look at and unpack what's going well and why, and in times and areas of which we're struggling as a parent, leading and guiding what's going on and why. And I think when we begin to really sit down and do that and to have these heart-to-heart conversations with our kids, that's when I learned the most about parenting, is understanding what they wanted, what was going to work for them, what were their desires and dreams and goals as being a member of the family, right? Because according to the kids, like, the only reason that we had kids is so that they could do chores around the house. And really it was a bigger picture than that perspective from them. But to truly understand what being a kid meant to them, what were the struggles, what were the highlights, how were they navigating, what did they need, where did they need support, where did they want to spread their wings and fly. And in some of those times, listen, it was not easy to allow them to spread their wings and fly, because I wanted to be in there to guide and hold and mold and protect. And it was me saying, listen, go figure it out. If it works out, great. If it doesn't, don't worry about it. We'll figure it out. And then we'll understand that process. So for me as a parent, I honestly can say I've learned the most by just being present and aligned with what my kids want and need. And that's been truly the biggest teacher for me as a parent.
Thanks, Eric. Thank you. Lorna Gale, please, a little more context before we jump.
Sure. So I was blessed to be a mom that got to stay at home with my children for the first 8 years of their lives, and so being a part of their lives day to day. And then when they went to school, I was weekly in the school system with them, volunteering and being a part of their lives. And that actually was the catalyst for me going on to be a school teacher and teaching in the school system since 1994, and being a part of education in one way or another. It's interesting. I remember my children actually gave me a thing about, because they're both parents now, and what advice would they give to parents? And so it was a fascinating thing to be able to look at that, of listen to them, trust them, let them be who they are, all of those things. And so it's just all the wisdom that we get to have. And I think sometimes as parents, I remember for me, it was just being in that wonder, kneeling down by the sidewalk and watching the little ants crawl with them and learning together with them, that the thrill of that. And at some point as well, to be able to remember that, yeah, they are individual peoples. It's not like they're the blank slate. So if we've been taught, that we have to fill it in, it's kind of like, no, like Galileo's quote, we cannot teach anyone anything. We can only help them to discover what's within. And I think that that's why, as a parent and as a teacher, I've come to this realization that, wow, kids are capable of so much more than I had ever given them credit for at that time, And so hindsight, when we look back on it, it's kind of like, wow, how much I get to learn from them. And so now, as my grandparents or my grandchildren are here, and they range from almost 12 down to 6 years old, and the incredible journey of getting to learn from them. And wow, it's rich. And as has been said as well, that aspect of looking at how, oh, here's some parenting, some different things, patterns, and this opportunity for me to say, oh, there's still that piece within me. What do I now get to shift and to be able to create a more open experience for myself and for my children and for my grandchildren?
Thank you, Lorna Gale. Love the picture of kneeling down to discover with the Heidi Haas, please, a little more context.
Yeah, my eldest is she's very strong-willed and determined and spirited. And when I started out parenting, I was kind of doing, I think, what I'd grown up with and what I saw around me and what was familiar. And yeah, that wasn't going to work. That was most definitely not going to work. And she was not even a year and a half, I think. And there was a day where we had such a fight between the two of us, and it was this whole battle of wills. And I remember sitting on the grass in the park, and both of us were crying. And I just thought, no, this isn't okay. This isn't going to work with her. And so I had to open myself up to go, okay, I don't know what I'm doing, so let's just figure it out. Like a lot of the rest of you said, right? And let's just figure out what we're doing. And so I learned a lot from her, and probably just as much as I ever taught her or more. But as a parent, through raising them, especially those early years, I didn't feel like I knew what I was doing. I was just trying to move by feel, and eventually I kind of figured out what not to do first, and had to pay attention to what not to do. And we've gradually learned the things that do work. And a lot of my parenting, I knew that if I could give them a foundation of love and trust and attachment, and if I could really get to know who they were and reflect that back to them and help them know themselves, the rest of it they could figure out. Because we did. Some of the struggles, I was a single parent from the time that my eldest was 7 and the youngest, well, she was 8 and the youngest was 3. So we were on our own, the four of us. And so we really had to take it a step at a time, and we had to let go of school lots of times because there was school refusal and things weren't working. So sometimes it was letting go, and then paying attention to what could open up from there. So that's been my journey. And it's really nice now to have them where they're 22, 25, in that kind of range, and being able to go, oh, okay, so that worked and that didn't. And you get to see a little bit of what happened, because when you're in the thick of it, it's just kind of like, I don't know if I'm doing the right thing or the wrong thing. And there's so much self-doubt in a lot of those years when there's the struggle. So it is a really nice place to be. I don't have any grandkids yet. I would love to be around for my kids to have grandkids, so hopefully we're going to get there. But it is pretty neat to be the parent of young adults now, and to be able to look back and go, yeah, some of that worked, and that's good.
Thanks, Heidi. All right, let's just jump into it. Kathleen, biggest lessons or biggest mistakes or anything along those lines? What was the stuff that shocked you the most? The word regret, not everyone aligns with that, but the stuff that taught you and you were like, wow. What hits you there?
Well, when you bring that up, you know, my son was 5 before he had a sister because I had some health issues and concerns about pregnancy and medications. And anyway, I had the assumption that they would be a lot the same. You know, at least I had already had a roadmap. But the second child was totally different, as anybody who has any other children, grandchildren, you know, they just are not a match set. And what worked for my son never motivated her. And the good news is that I've had a lot of training in working with getting information. I call it my inner guidance team of mentors and how to really work with them. And I always felt like I had these sort of 24/7 nannies on call because, you know, in today's age, you don't have that extended family. And at that time, maybe long distance calls were really pricey. But, you know, just finding out, oh, you know, this particular soul needs this totally different approach than this one. And even today, how diverse that they are and what motivates them. We call it in the organization I worked with, it's sort of like their sort of spiritual thrust. It has a lot to do with the wisdom they've already come in with and have meant to share with everybody else. So it's having that ability to tune in and tune into what are the needs here and not assume that things are the same just because it was that way prior.
Yeah. Oh, I resonate with that. Thank you, Kathleen. Eric, please, biggest lesson, mistake, regret, whatever, however you frame that, please.
Listen faster. Listen intently. Listen with purpose. If I could have learned that when they were young, I would have done so much better in the parenting process because it got to that place where I didn't really understand my kids because I wasn't listening and I wasn't understanding what they were going through. And I was missing those context clues that they were sending because I was more focused on me than I was about them. And I didn't realize in the process that they were struggling with mental health issues that led into substance abuse and things of that nature. And so I think for me, that was the biggest learning curve for me. And I am happy to say that I am doing much, much better at that as a parent and also as a teacher. And understanding that it's not about me, it's about them. And what is going on with them is coming out through actions, reactions, language, other things of that nature. And for me to really listen with my eyes, listen with my ears, listen with my heart, and then be able to best support them.
Thank you, Eric. Yeah, I resonate with that too. Leanna Burton Cap is just lighting up the chat. She's just loving this. Thanks for watching, Leanna. And thanks, Eric. Lorna Gale, where does that hit you?
You know, as you said that, different things started to arise. It's kind of like, oh, wow, is there more? It's just, do I talk about this, and is it what it actually comes down to as I realize it? It's this sense of right and wrong, how that's been so deeply ingrained in, you know, from a religious perspective, you know, right and wrong means heaven and hell and, you know, eternal damnation or, you know, eternal, you know, joy type thing. And so how that applies to parenting, it's this sense of there's as if there's only two. You're right or you're wrong, you know, and to be able to, so that aspect of coming in and really, as Eric says, you know, about really listening to our children. And I think for me as a parent, where that applies is that sense of I could get it right or I could get it wrong. If I got it right, my kids would be okay. If I got it wrong, you know, we would all lose out. Rather than has been reflected here from each of us is that aspect of they are their own beings. They are on their own journey. And as Kahlil Gibran talks about is that we are the bows from which those arrows of our children are shot. They are not ours. And yet we to be able to be creating this space to guide that, to allow that space for who they are to shine. And it seems as well for me that that part of making it too easy for them actually makes it hard. It doesn't allow them to find out what they are capable of, what is within them. And it's okay for children to struggle. It's okay for children to be challenged. I don't have to make it easy for them. I'm actually, as we talked about here in our household, where I live with one of my daughters and her family of 3 children, and the other ones are just 6 doors down. But when we do them, when we take away those opportunities for them to learn and to struggle, we actually rob them. We really do them a disservice by not allowing them to find out what's it like to work through things. And so it feels like this whole thing of right and wrong, it comes back into this: what is here in the moment, and what is here. And again, from a right and wrong perspective, growing up in a home where punishment was the way of trying to direct, and how can I let go of that old model? And I still sometimes see it showing up. It's kind of like, no, how can I let go of that and say, what do you need right now? How can I support you? So it feels like for me, it's a much more gentle way for all of us of just being present to what is. What do you need in this moment?
Wow. I would have liked to have grown up like that. That sounds like a lot better than maybe what a lot of us experience. Thank you, Lorna Gale. Heidi Haas, how does that hit you?
Yeah, starting off as a parent, there was so much of the should and have to, and what I knew, what I'd grown up, what I'd seen, was a lot of control and power over. And I think a lot shifted for me and for my kids when I learned to see that as more. Well, first of all, the shoulds and the power over and the control just didn't work, because I knew that I didn't want to suppress or to hurt my kids. And that's sort of what happened when I tried to control, or even when I learned that trying to fix things was also just me trying to control them. And I had to change that perspective for myself to be able to see that, no, I had to actually let that go. And if I wanted to get to know them, and if I wanted for them to know themselves and grow into healthy human beings, then I was going to have to ask a lot more questions. I was going to have to listen some more. I really had to create a space and give them permission. Lots of times it was actually specifically giving them permission. I remember saying to my kids, like, if you see me doing stuff that I've told you not to do, you're allowed to tell me. I want you to tell me, because I'm trying to learn with you, right? So my eldest was right on that bus, I'm telling you. She was like, Mom, you're doing what you told me not to do yesterday. And, I had to take a deep breath and kind of go, okay, don't react. You're right. Okay, let's figure this out, right? But that's really hard, because there's so many feelings, and it feels like, the house that I grew up in, that would have been disrespectful. And I needed to make it so that, no, that's not disrespectful. That is respect, because you're helping me grow. And that perspective change really helped the dynamic between my kids and I, so that they could speak up, right? Because there were so many times when they were younger even, and I hadn't, well, I mean, this has been like a 25-year journey, and I'm still learning. So, there were many times when we look back on it now, and especially my eldest can say, I didn't feel like I could tell you that. And it was like, so even when I said, well, how are you feeling, or what do you want to do? Oh, fine. They wouldn't share anything. We had to find those ways to I had to find the ways to open the door and to make them really trust that, yes, I wanted to hear what they had to say. And a lot of that was, I had to do my therapy and counseling and figure it all out, so that when they told me, I didn't react and get angry and therefore shut them down. So that whole dynamic change, I think, is the biggest thing that made our household what it is now, which is a very peaceful and really great relationships with my young adult kids that I never had with my parents. So I'm glad. I'm happy to see it now.
Happy for you, Heidi. That's wow, congrats and thank you for sharing that. Let's go to circle back now to that cup analogy as I hold up my tea. One of you said earlier, the idea, Richard just talked kind of about this too, about that they come empty and we have to force, control, right? As opposed to guide, help. Or else do they come full? Do they come with their lessons inside them and maybe their lessons, the lessons that we need to learn or that I need to learn. Kathleen, what are your thoughts on that? How does a kid showing up on Earth, what do they bear in their cup? And what do you have in your cup to give them? And what do they have in their cup to give you?
Well, I think Richard and I have a lot of the same philosophies because we've had a lot of the same training, but they come, it's a lot like Michelangelo said that somebody said, well, how did you create David? And he said, well, I just took away everything that wasn't David. And kids come really complete. We all are complete, but because of experiences and lessons this life, other possible lives, etc., that we maybe need some help in taking away things that aren't really us, that are past training. I think with children, it isn't my opportunity to mold them. They need, as a very small baby, of course, they have needs that they can't take care of themselves about. And so but at some point, the more and more that they can have involvement, you see a toddler helping mommy put dishes in the dishwasher, you see a happy kid. They want opportunity. I was just listening to a podcast. It was talking about if you want to have 4-year-olds help clean up the room, you ask not who does want to help, but who wants to be helpers. And that was like the key word that the person was passing on. And people want to be of service. And I had to have some lessons there. Kids come with certain lessons that they're learning that might be even a carryover. I know that my children have taught me a lot about patience. And I also taught my parents a lot about patience. And one of the biggest gifts is if I can expand in that arena even more. And I had a great learning experience about what does the energy of calling somebody a dumb name feel like? And that how kids and siblings will call each other names. Well, we had this experience and felt like what it felt, and we all made a pact. My daughter was 6 and her brother was maybe 11, and we said, we're never going to say those kinds of words. Other people use them, but we're not using them. Those things, they just don't feel good, and we all recognize it, and let's move forward. So recognizing that as a soul, we have lessons that we're learning, but the sooner we can have awareness of the pattern, we always have choices and ways and solutions, especially if we tune our energy into being solution oriented. It's amazing how fast those solutions can rise to the surface.
Thank you, Kathleen. Eric, thoughts, please.
Yeah, wow. Yeah. I don't know. Am I the cup or am I the water? Bruce Lee says to be the water. The cup is just that vessel of which holds that water or that liquid that's in the cup. And to me, that liquid is opportunity, it's possibility. It's like Kathleen said, it's the choices. And if we make those for the kids, what is this going to taste like to them? Is this going to be refreshing? Is this going to meet their needs? Is this going to be something valuable for them? Is it going to leave a bitter taste? And so for me, it's how do we create that liquid to be something that's a learning experience, to be something that produces a good taste, a sweet taste, a palatable taste, which leads them into this place called, I love this word, empowered. And this is why I have the Empowered Family Network, right? How do we empower our kids? Creating that space for that opportunity, possibility, and choices to be done so in a very healthy way, a respectful way. And so this water now represents all that is coming to our kids in outside influences each day and how they're able to navigate through that to become the empowered individuals that they were created to be.
Thank you, Eric. Thanks for sharing that. Lorna Gale, what are your thoughts on that?
Maybe both. maybe it's both the aspect of being all of it. It seems to me that again, coming back to that that it's all within. And I love that word empower. And when I, as a, as a writing specialist and loving words, that when I explored what does empower mean, and it actually the prefix of em or en, but m means it's within. So it's not about pouring something in. It's actually about empowering them, helping them to know, as Eric says, helping them to know what's already within them. And I think that just really speaks to, again, it reinforces this aspect of, oh, it's not even my journey to put anything in. I can support that. I can fuel that. I can create that space in that container. And at the same time, a part of our human journey is to have these conflicts, to have these struggles, these obstacles. That's a part of this journey of feeling like, oh, I can accomplish something. I mean, if the mountain wasn't there, what would be the sense of, where would be that journey of trying to climb a mountain, and all of the planning and all of that sense of accomplishment and teamwork and all of those things. So the journey that, or the role that obstacles and challenges play for it. And so we as parents, as I see it, and grandparents and a community, it takes a village, is to be able to allow those children to really thrive and be who they are. And it'll show up one way or another, and in perfect time, how it will show up. And it just becomes, what's the journey that they take to have that experience. And I think, as each one of us can attest, that no matter what our journey has been, when we look back on it, is like, oh, that did play a role, that did support me. When I look at it from another perspective, it actually was very instrumental in allowing me to experience such and such that brings me to this place where I am right now. And I think that's where sometimes this aspect, oh, I can get it right or wrong, it's just kind of like, no, it's going to be a journey. It's going to be a journey that's going to unfold, whether it's a choose your own adventure, we go this route or this route or this route, but somehow we're going to get there to exactly the place, and not only a destination, but every moment. Ah, here I am right now, perfectly where I am to be. And to put that in have that as a container or a context for raising children, it really, in some ways, really takes off a lot of the pressure, not necessarily the responsibility to do all that I can and be all that I can be in support of my children and grandchildren, my students, but it also is, it takes away that sense of I am responsible for them. And in my work as consent, as in my work as somatic sexologist and supporting people in their sexual freedom and spiritual wholeness, what I look at is consent and how has that played a role. And I say consent is a feeling because it goes back to all the way to childhood, early, where we do start to erode their ability to know who they are and to trust themselves and to use their voice. But when we can nurture that by, oh, you don't want to give grandma a kiss when she's leaving, that's okay. And we support that, allows them to, it empowers them in ways that we perhaps as our own selves haven't experienced, because it was kind of what we've talked about, right? The control, the trying to force and, oh, to mold them into, I need to be looking like an upright citizen and community member. So I need my children to look this way, rather than, no, whatever it is, you're bisexual, whatever, however you are, oh, you're this, you're that. Wow, I love you as you are. How can I support you in who you are, no matter what it is? And so for me, that, I think that's the piece of it, is just really supporting them in being who they are, revealing that.
Wow. Thank you, Lorna. Heidi Haas, how does that hit you?
Well, I think as I figured out that parenting that was about control and making them do things or fixing them wasn't what was going to work, I think my mindset was to realize that I needed to do something you talk about a lot, Amos. I needed to be of service to my children. That was going to be my role. And really that put me into a mindset. I think that implies that they were fully formed spirits and beings with personalities and thoughts and ideas and desires completely separate from me. And therefore it was my job to sort of figure out who they were and to listen, like Eric said, and to ask, ask lots and lots of questions. And gradually they started telling me, and there was so much there. When they got a little bit older and they were teenagers, I really saw my role to be, or one of my roles there as a parent was to be their mirror. It's so hard to see yourself. And adolescence is so much about kids trying to figure out who they are. So I spent a lot of time going, I noticed X. Does that feel right to you? Or what was that all about? And that would get them thinking. So, I was there asking questions, but it was never an assumption that I was making them. I really do think they came into this world. We all come into this world fully formed and existing, and I spent a lot of my time as a parent just trying to listen and ask those questions and help them figure out and see the things that maybe I saw that they weren't seeing yet. And if I could help them with that, then that was great. And they taught me a lot. There was, especially, I'm very different from some of my kids. And what I would think, it was a real revelation sometimes to be able to go, what was going on for you there? And then they would tell me, and I'd go, holy, that was like not at all what I was thinking. That's not what I thought was going on. And so those, being able to come back and go, can you tell me about what happened? Like, say, after a fight or a disagreement or whatever it was that happened. I go, what happened? Like, what was going on for you there? And letting them really talk about that. And, that was often either over food or side by side, driving in a car, walking, laying in bed at night. And I go, what happened for you? Right. And then there's like less pressure, and they would often open up. And, those, when they opened up and they shared those thoughts with me, then that really gave me that picture that, yeah, you are your own separate person and you have your own thoughts, and it's my job to just try and listen and figure out what that is. And you know what, I asked them questions, I gave them ideas, I could coach, but I didn't create them, I didn't fill them. They weren't an empty vessel at all. That's my belief.
Thank you, Heidi. It's interesting. Richard says, as a parent, I'm not raising a child, I'm nurturing a soul to become who they really are from the inside out. My opportunity to raise an independent adult. And that's good timing. I wanted to ask you, so Kathleen, who owns the kid?
Well,
Own
they
them?
own themselves. They own themselves. They're it's a sort of a contract. They chose me for what they could learn from the situation. I chose them for the same, it's a 50-50 thing. And there is, when a person starts to, well, the reality, we don't own anything. It's we're just passing through, and we have different things that we might think that we own, but we're not taking it with us. We're only taking our state of consciousness and recognizing, first of all, I have to be my own person. That's part of maybe what they came to learn from me. I remember my son being in his teenage years, and he says, Mom, as a spiritual leader, you're gone an awful lot. And I said, yeah, but you know what? I was a spiritual leader before you were born, and you chose me. He never complained again. I've been consistent in my path, and they can see that, and it gives them permission to be consistent in their journey, what they have a feeling for in their expression. And I think that's, allowing them. I've had a little bit of that helicopter pilot parent type of thing where, you try to save your kid from maybe some hard thing. And Lorna said it the best. It's really all about the journey, not the destination. And when I learned that, hey, life is a journey and an adventure, and we need that excitement. We sort of need the ups to, balance out the downs. And if we're not on that kind of roller coaster, we don't really like it. So it's just recognizing that they teach me, I teach them, and we're in it together and with mutual respect and backing.
Thanks for sharing, Kathleen. Eric, thoughts on that? Ownership.
Yeah, well, thank God I don't own my kids. I can barely keep my head above water, right? Holy moly. Now, listen, from early on, we told our kids, we're not in charge of you, you're in charge of you. If you need support going through your day-to-day operations because something's not working, let's talk about that. Let's fine-tune that so you can get the results that you want to get. If you're going to make a choice that's going to do this or this, the understanding and the learning here is how did it turn out? And then to make those course corrections along the way. It is your journey. I can't force you, and I'm not going to force you to do things within reason, of course, right? And I'm going to be here to support you. If you need more support in an area, that's my job. If you need less support in an area, that's my job. But we're going to be communicative. We're going to be talking about, like Heidi's been saying, really being open in that communication so that I can understand you, you can understand me, and we come into alignment and understand what each other needs in specific situations. But dude, you're in charge of you. Good luck.
Wow. Well said. At least I think that's great. Thank you, Eric. Lorna, please.
And before I respond to that question, I just want to pause and just really say thank you to Kathleen and to Eric and to Heidi. I'm just so blessed and just such a beautiful time of sharing. And I know that even as I leave our call, I will be doing some minute changes and things. So I just really want to bless you and thank you for your impact on my life in this moment and all who will listen. And just I want to pause and say that first of all before we even continue, rather than saving it till my end thing. So thank you. Who owns them? I would say no ownership. It's that expression of spirit, of soul. It's just like an author, do they own that book that they wrote, or is it expression of them? So I think it really comes down to that. And wow, that I get to read this novel of this child, be a part of it as it's unfolding. And as I, and Eric, as you were saying that of, be able to give them the opportunity to, here's whatever support you need as you're finding your way. I have one of my brothers, his wife, when she and her sister were being raised, their parents helped them make decisions and decision making skills until they were 10 years old. And after that, they didn't make another decision for them. They were always there for support, if you need something, but it allowed them to find out, okay, let's try this. Oh, that didn't work. Okay. It comes back to some of the questionings, right? That Kathleen, that you've talked about, and that Heidi, that you have absolutely, side by side over the food, or bed at night, is just what support do you need. And it's just what a potent way. And my children were raised well after I heard that perspective, and I thought, wow, that would just be such an amazing thing to really be able to. And I think it speaks to what we're talking about today, or what we've all shared. It's that no, there's the potential, they're all whole within, and how do we allow them to bring it forward and to be the gift that they are, in their own experience as well as what they bring to the world. So
Thank you, Lorna Gale. Heidi, thoughts, please.
Yeah, I remember one of my kids at one point saying, Mom, are you proud of me? And I said, no, because if I'm proud of you, that implies that I have this responsibility, or like you said, ownership of what you did. And I didn't do it. You did it. And I think that's been sort of the feeling that I've had with my kids is that's not mine. You get to be proud of what you're doing because you're the one who's doing it. So, I mean, I don't like the idea of necessarily of ownership, because I guess if anything, maybe we have ownership over ourselves, but like we don't own each other. We don't own another spirit. Kathleen, I also really appreciate, what you were saying, and just that the spiritual journey, and that, our children chose us. And I had heard, I hadn't done a lot of thinking around spiritual things when I was a younger parent. But there was one day where my youngest was sitting in my lap. He was just over 3. And he's sitting in my lap and I'm cuddling him and we're, giggling and playing and stuff. And he sort of stopped, got really serious, and he looked up at me and like dead eye contact, right? And he said, Mom, do you remember when I was the grown up and you were the kid and I was holding you like this? And I mean, even just right now, but like at the time, the hair on the back of my neck just stood up. And I just thought, what a beautiful and comforting kind of idea of that, like we travel together as souls. And we've switched, we've played different roles, maybe, this idea of, we sat there as spirit and said, hey, this time around, I'm going to be the parent, you be the kid, you'll be a boy this time, whatever that looks like. And I think that's, we journey together. We don't own each other. That's my thought.
Thank you, Heidi. Beautiful picture there. Profound to have. Yeah, wow. Let's go start closing remarks. Kathleen, last thoughts before we close this out. Where are you at with this? And yeah.
Well, I think in dealing with grandchildren, young people, adult children, it's back to that golden rule: treat others as you want to be treated yourself. Unless they tell me something different, I can treat everybody, that from that viewpoint. And having the reverence and kindness and backing of any soul, wherever they are in their journey. I don't need to judge them. They don't need that. But I can be there. I can be supportive. I can be open. And I can actually give people facts about their situation. Why did they choose what they chose? Well, how do they really work and perceive through life? What is their main message they're carrying for other people? And luckily, I've had some training to pass that information on. And it's been invaluable to work with my children and grandchildren from that bigger perspective. And there is always a bigger perspective and a bigger picture out there. It's just being open to it.
All right. Thank you, Kathleen. Eric, final closing comments?
What to expect when you're expecting.
Mm-hmm.
And now they're here. Best of luck. What do you do? Listen, if I could leave one word with everybody today is get clear for you guys as a family. What do you want? Stay true on that path. Stay true to that mission. Stay true to that choice of what it is that you guys want. How you get there can change and alter and have those goals be intertwined with that. But don't deviate from that path of what you want. And use that as you're hearing everybody talk about today. Guide, support, love, encourage, and listen.
Thank you, Eric. Lorna Gale, closing thoughts?
Continue to do my inner work, to the things that come up for me, those mirrors, right, that the children are for me as well, grandchildren, to listen more, to ask more questions, to relax, to take the pressure off of me and them, and be in the joy of living together. And what support, how can I support, to be there, and not with this sense of here's the outcome that we're aiming for, but what is our journey? How does this river flow? Because no river is straight. It's what are the curves of this river we're on? Let's do it together, and in that place of love and joy and the honor and the joy of being together.
Well said. Thank you, Lorna Gale. Heidi Haas, last final comments?
I think looking back on my own journey, and I think the biggest thing is just to really be open to letting parenting and letting your children change you. It's all about growth. And I look back and I am sometimes it's hard to believe some of the stuff and like did I really do that? And did I really say that? Like, it feels like I'm a different person. I have grown so much, and being open to that growth, doing my own work, um, and just really, really letting my children teach me just as much as I maybe ever teach them. So yeah, that's been huge, and it really just changed our whole path, that river, right, Lorna? So
Wow. Thank you, Heidi Haas, letting them change us. Wow. Well, beautiful micro summit. Thank you everyone for being here. ENTV, if you've been watching this, Kathleen Ellis, Eric Stenlake, Lorna Gale, Heidi Haas, I'll be tagging each of them. Do you all want to sign off to each other?
Well, I'm just really grateful to have the experience of everybody else's experience. I learned and grow and get a bigger picture. Everything everybody brought to the table is unique, positive, and supportive of each other. It's such an honor to be a part. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys all, each of you, for your perspectives, your insights, and your challenges. I'm a better person for being a part of this today, and I thank you.
Thank you, Kathleen, and thank you, Eric. Thank you, Heidi, for the lights that you are. And it just feels like we've just really, I think that aspect of, one light, one light. It's like when we come together, there's this even brighter light. And I just really, and Amos and all of us that are being here, and I'm just really grateful and honored.
I really appreciate feeling the support, like the rest of you have said, but also just sort of feeling like it's, we're all different, but there were some commonalities there, and there's there is something to having some of that community and that validation. And there were times during my parenting journey where I had to put the blinders on, and we kind of shut out the whole world so that me and my kids could figure out what was going on. And it was very lonely, and it's really nice to have, to have met, Lorna, I knew you already, but, Eric and Kathleen, it's fantastic to sort of have a little connection with you guys now. And there's just a little bit, my community is a little bit bigger now, and I really appreciate that. I appreciate all of you. Thank you.
Thanks for being here, everyone. ENTV, please reach out to all four of them, anyone that you want to connect with. They'd love to connect with you and continue this conversation. And the whole purpose of ENTV is to connect people with new people with new thoughts and ideas like today, and then people with new resources so that ultimately you can go and propel and catapult your life forward for whatever purpose you are here on Earth. So thanks for watching. Thank you, the four of you, for being here, and we'll end it here.